Good afternoon. I realize I'm the last guy between the sessions of today and the keynote from our guest speaker. So I'll make it as interactive as possible in the witching hour. So my name is Satya. I am the Principal Solutions Architect for Appian. And I want to take the next 45 minutes to talk about how Appian and RPA, along with a few other technologies, play together to have the complete end-to-end digital automation, or intelligent automation, as they call it, driven in organizations. But before I go into that, I want you guys to take a moment and think about what is your future. Right? So not in philosophical way, but in your work, day-to-day work life, what is your future? What makes it better for you? What you think will be successful for you in the future if you get it today? Take a moment to think about it. My mom was looking for a bride for me, and we went to people who have a parrot, and the parrot picks up a card, and they see what's in the card, and they say, he'll get married in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. So that's the kind of era I come in. So for me, future is finding the right person. That was the case then. For Union Bank of Philippines, in 2016, the chief executive said, we either digitize or we perish. So they were making the loan origination process, and it was taking 2 to 3 weeks just to get something flowing through the system. It was like 5% of the work was getting done, and it was extremely inefficient. He was very clear in what his vision was. He wanted to automate and make the entire technology up to speed with what was happening. We introduced both Appian and RPA in order to automate their end-to-end journey. At the end of the result was, they were able to complete from 2 weeks of completing a loan process. It was turned down to just 5 minutes. From 2 weeks to 5 minutes. They were able to deploy so many processes and accelerated the entire end-to-end growth by 300%. And this is all done not just purely from Appian's point of view, but it is working in tandem with RPA. They are using RPA to talk to some of the legacy landscape. They have around 250 legacy applications that RPA is touching to automate their end-to-end journey. 250 legacy applications. So I've come across like 30, 40, and I'm thinking to myself, that's a lot, but 250 is like unheard of. It's all like custom build, bespoke, .NET, COM, DCOM kind of a solutions. If you look into how we see work, if you take a simple example, you might have come across this before. Take a very simple handling process. You have a 5-step process, which is classify something that comes in, route it to the right team, review, approve, and update the system. Traditionally, everything is done by a human. So somebody brings that content in, somebody then classifies it based on the skill set, and then somebody says, this is the next person who need to complete the job, and then it flows down the track. If you were on Mike's keynote yesterday, we showed a simple example of how an email process, an email intake process is fully getting automated. That's the power of pulling the 4 nexus. This is what I call as the 4 nexus of intelligent automation. It's business process to understand how your business runs end-to-end, integration to pull all the data together, RPA to automate events, and finally AI to assist the human workforce to be very efficient. So these are the 4 things that we are bringing into the table in one single place. But what is RPA? If you go to the 80s, we had macros. They were RPA at that time too. I mean, you copy paste. Anybody come across WordPerfect 1992, right? Oh, I'm showing my age now. I just said yesterday I'm 16 years and 240 months old. Now all of a sudden I'm showing my age. WordPerfect is literally, you have a template, you define a macro, it copies address, and then spaces. So that was macro in 1994. But today, you have two spectrum of RPA technologies. What we call as robotic process automation, and the other one is desktop process automation. Now, both of them have right places to be used at the right time. Desktop process automation, some people say, I don't like that sound, but they say it's like macros on steroids. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not here to comment on that. But the robotic process automation is where the real value is. It allows you to define a process that is repetitive of what your human does. So that's what he's doing, just clicking a button that says submit, submit, and submit. You can take that repetitive work out of this person and then automate that one, keeping the human intelligence to focus on what the human intelligence is good at, solving problems. Not clicking buttons, but solving problems. One of the Fortune 500 companies, it's a bank. I don't have the liberty to come up with this name. One of the biggest problems was handling general ledger exceptions. They were throwing thousands of exceptions per day. Now imagine you're handling your ledgers, you're having exception, and each exception is going to cost you time, money, and delay, which breaches the SLA. With the introduction of Appian and RPA together, they were able to automate the entire end-to-end exchange. So where it can be automated, they automate the entire exception handling process. Where an exception cannot be handled by an RPA, it automatically pulls the human in the loop. So this is the word you might have heard about. Have you guys heard about human in the loop? All right? So it's a term that's been floating around. All it means is, how can bots and humans seamlessly work together? Okay, they work together, but how can you make it easy? You don't even know whether the task is done by a human or a bot. So that's the human in the loop concept. That's what they're trying to do. It's like 1.6 million transactions processed. So that's the power of intelligent automation when done right with that right technologies. Now, the obvious next question is going to be, yeah, that sounds nice, Satya, but why RPA? Why can't I use something else? I have 50 people, 100 people, 200 people. Why can't I do that? Now, if you look into this, it's all about majority of the organizations have multiple ERP systems. And when you look into large-scale organization, about $1 billion revenue, we are talking about, I told you an example of 250 legacy applications for Union Bank of Philippines. We are talking about an average 100+ applications happening around. It's impossible. It is possible, but it's not nice for a human to seamlessly swivel between all those applications. It's not just swiveling. Let's say you have a new employee starting. How long does it take for that person to get trained on that and start using that? You put them on a 3-month training course, and then comes another technology, another 3 months. It just keeps on going in a loop. This is where using intelligent decisioning and intelligent automation really pays off. So the philosophy that we are trying to do is, or preach, as well as practice, is a human should be working in one single place. The person should get all the job that they need to do at that point in time in one single place. What happens under the hood should be totally transparent. So I don't need to be going into a legacy system and saying, open this emulator, access my AS400 and get the data, copy it, and type it again on the system. That's not the skill set. So that's the image that was pressing that icon that we saw earlier. And if you look into that space of robotic process automation, the true robotic process automation, the 3 names that comes into the forefront today are Blue Prism, UiPath, and Automation Anywhere. So these are currently the leading. Now, you heard yesterday, Microsoft is coming up with an RPA product as well. So once it comes up with some kind of a market volume, we will be working with them as well, because Appian is an open integration platform. Today, we have the ability to work with any of these 3 technologies out of the box. If you have any of these technologies, you install Appian, flip a switch, we can talk to any of these robotics. So the human in the loop element is done seamlessly. You are not required to write any Java, any coding, any XML, or anything like that. Appian automatically discovers the information, and you exchange or call the bots as you need. The other example I want to talk about here is S&P Global. So these people publish news articles. They are using Appian with RPA and natural language generation capability to automatically publish articles. So the RPA tool is going and fetching these articles based on keywords and keywords of interest. They are using natural language generation to generate the article, and they are automatically publishing the entire stuff. So they are more focused on how quickly can they get a story to the market. This is, I mean, for me, when I heard the story, this is like a very different way of using technology. They are trying to use modern technology like natural language generation with RPA to create articles and push articles out as quickly as possible. Full end-to-end visibility and delivery done within a matter of weeks, 6 weeks over here, as it says. Earlier, I told you about we can work with all the 3 technologies. So this slides talk about how you do it. This is what we call as a connected system configuration in Appian. So if you have the Appian's design environment, when you log into that, you have something called as a connected system. You launch it, and then you see that these are all the systems we can talk to. Over here, you select which system you want to talk. It can be Automation Anywhere, UiPath, or Blue Prism. Once you provide the details, Appian will self-discover the process that you have in your automation tool marked as ready to be consumed, and then it will discover and say, these are the process I have. Then you select which process you want to call. Appian is going to discover the attribute or parameters that you want to pass into that robot, and what you're going to get back is automatically converted as well. Within 3 clicks, you are now able to pull every information that a bot is capable of receiving and giving you back within the Appian configuration. The same with Queensland University of Technology. So this is one of the, maybe I should use the word data rather than data, given that this is like a Australian said. I have a colleague of mine, he always says data, and I'm like, hold on, say that again. But then I have a different accent too. The university manages 4,000 contract renewals every year, 4,000 contract renewals. They create 3,000 new contracts for new, like these are like employees as well as part-time employees every year. And they handle 14,000 students, 7,000 each semester. Each contract is 4 pages long. So when the contract comes in as a page, somebody has to create that, put it in a system, and then they have to call somebody and say, go and do the job. All these things were done by 6 people. 6 people. This is not a scalable model, copying and pasting and doing everything. So usually it goes on a spike during the start of the semester and goes down. Visibility was absolutely 0. So if you're employing somebody and saying, hey, I have your contract, and then they call you in 2 days' time and say, it's been 2 weeks, what's happening? Am I employed or not? I don't have an answer to that, because I can't go through my 30 trees that I burned to print 21,000 pages to figure out where the contract is. They started using Appian to automate the paper process first. So from all the papers, 21,000 papers per semester went down to almost 0. The second step was to integrate with the HR tool or the payroll management tool. Fortunately or unfortunately, there was no API for the payroll system. So this is where they started leveraging APIs, robotics, to talk directly to the HR payroll software. Now all they do is one single pane of glass, enter the information. Within 5 minutes, you know whether it's happening or not. 1/3 of the contracts were signed, contract done, completed within a day. From 2 weeks, within a day. And that for a university is like an extremely good standard. And they are actually getting it better and better every day. So how do they do all these things? it is important for, as I said, the technologies to work together. In order to make that happen, we last year introduced the concept of Robotic Workforce Manager, a tool built on Appian that allows you to manage, orchestrate, consume, and analyze what happens in a bot landscape. We heard the feedback from the audience, we had the feedback from the customers, and then we have made changes to that to make it even better, to scale better, to work with multiple RPA technologies at the same time better, also to work with multiple RPA servers. Let's say you have a farm of Blue Prism servers. We can work with all of them at the same time, give you a global analysis of what is happening, rather than a server-by-server analysis. That is what Robotic Workforce Manager is. If you look into that, we got customers like CME Group that they are using this software. So what they do is they have applications for customer onboarding, client onboarding, product launch, and everything else. So the product launch is made up of 5 steps: idea, generation, product catalog, product testing, release, and analysis. So where human was needed for idea generation, it still stays in the human element, but wherever you have automation stuff like testing and other things, they all have been automated. So again, you are having modern technology working hand in hand with robotic technology to automate your end-to-end events. Everything on the Robotic Workforce Manager is plug and play. We have it today. You can download it from our app market, and you can start using it straight away. Whether you have UiPath or you have Blue Prism, we have the solution working right now. It's working right now. We'll go into a demo to show you what this is all about. But before I jump into the demo, the Robotic Workforce Manager is not just calling a bot and pushing and pulling data. It goes way beyond that. The Robotic Workforce Manager is made up of 3 parts. It's made up of a deployment manager. A deployment manager is a software development lifecycle for creating an idea of a department saying that, hey, I think I have a use case for you to create a bot and use it, all the way till a center of excellence on business agreeing to that, a center of excellence on IT agreeing to that, building, deploying, and monitoring it. So why is this important? Now, when you create a robotic workforce, not a bot, the usual use case is every bot saves 3 FTE, because bots work 24/7, human work 8 hours a day. So that's the kind of equation you work into. But what is the reality? So you need to understand what the reality is versus what the number it's really being put on paper. By defining the entire life cycle within Appian, you are now able to identify what the business says is the time it takes for them to complete the job today as a human. And when you release it, you are able to track the real time it takes for the bot to complete the job, so you can compare how much time the human was doing and how much time the bot is really saving. This takes into account any exception time that the bot has as well. When it goes into the exception, how long is it waiting over there? Everything end-to-end is fully traced. Then you have the control center. The control center allows you to manage the entire bot landscape. Whether you have Blue Prism or UiPath, everything can be done in one single place. And last, based on best practices, we have what we call as a global case management solution. A global case management solution is a pattern where when an exception happens in a bot, instead of that going into a queue, it can be neatly brought into a human. Using decisioning capability, we can identify who is the right person to complete the job, get the job done, and push the task forward without having any large downtime at all. This is a pattern that you can use across any robotic software or any tool that throws exception. Now, let me show this to you in action. So this is version 2 of Robotic Workforce Manager. And as I said, it has the 3 elements: Deployment Manager, Control Center, and Global Case Manager. If I look into the Deployment Manager, so here you have a full view of what is currently happening in my system. So for example, I can see how many processes are currently running, what are the license costs, for example, what kind of revenue it's actually saving. So if you can put a dollar value against the hour it spends, you can actually calculate the revenue it's actually saving. So everything can be viewed in one single place. Once again, I can't re-stress the fact that this is pulling the data from multiple bot landscape in one single place. So it goes and consumes the data from multiple Blue Prism server, UiPath server, everything in one single place, and consolidates the data for you. As you can see, I have multiple servers that I have selected over here. So I can choose which one I want, which one I don't want. Based on that, it filters automatically. I can also see the app impact analysis. So what and all are the systems that this one is affecting? So for example, if I look into SAP, I don't have any data on this one, but let's into a request. So this is a department that says, I want to automate my SAP integration. So everything from when it was started, who initiated it, what are the different steps that was done in order to move it from idea to execution, and how long it took to the entire end-to-end process is registered over here. So you know what is the starting point. Then you can manage each and every application. So this is where you can say, I want to manage my application. So this one has a firewall. It might be a single sign-on that is required to configure. I have an IP address. So everything that is technically needed can be consolidated in one single place, including who's the owner. So if I want to ask a question to the subject matter expert, I can directly go and say, tell me more about this one. I can also see the status report at any given time. The status report is like, these are the processes that business has asked for. These are the steps that are currently with the Business Center of Excellence for review, IT Center of Excellence, and these are in production. So it's like a Kanban style to say what are the steps that are being taken. So if one of the department comes to you and says, hey, I asked you to automate my process, what's happening? You have a single view to answer those questions straight from here. And finally, for business to initiate a new request, we bring them into the BPM workflow. So here, you have a process that says, give me the necessary information for me to automate your process. So a business team can go in, fill this information, and that goes into the process chain from idea to application. So what you have seen here is the deployment manager. So let's say I have gone through this life cycle. I had an idea. I got my approval from the Center of Excellence, and it's been created and gone into production. What happens next? That's where the control center comes into action. The control center allows you to manage all the landscape of applications and bots that you have within the system. So here I can see these are the different business units, and these are the number of processes that they're executing. So this tells me whether my investment on the right department for the right process is right or not. So I can see that in green, which is not defined. I mean, these are dummy names. So you can have IT department, you can have finance, you can have HR. So you can see which department is really utilizing your processes. And that directly translates to the success of the bots, of the processes being automated. In addition to that, on the right-hand side, you can also see which process are throwing the maximum number of exceptions. So exceptions cost money, time, and effort in order to resolve. So you want to get a statistics of what are the processes that are actually throwing exception as well. So that is monitored and viewed over here. So you can now have your IT team or your RPA Center of Excellence to focus on what is the root cause for these exceptions to happen. You'll be very surprised. I was speaking to a customer who initially had, they had like 60 people building bots. they had 200 processes that were automated. And they were investing more and more on refining a bot that was handling invoice management. So whenever an invoice comes from a vendor, a bot picks up, it does all the jobs, but then they were handling every possible exception. Every time an exception happens, it becomes an IT ticket. The IT will figure out what the exception was and figure out a way to handle it. This was a challenge for them because they were seeing the issue from one dimension, from the bot's exception dimension. When they added the business data of which process is actually raising, why it is raising, where it is coming from, the entire stuff funneled into one single vendor. 97% of the exception they were fixing day to day was coming from one single vendor. And when they looked into the root cause, the single vendor was filling in the invoice file with pen and paper, scanning it, and sending it over. So the fundamental issue was not with the bots at all. The fundamental issue was just a phone call to say, you need to standardize the way you send the invoice over. So by combining the data that comes from the bot and the business data that Appian holds, you are now able to get deeper visibility into what is the root cause for those things to happen. And you can identify where to focus your investment on in changing things. I can also see the list of processes. So these are all the processes that are in flight. So I can see that there are processes running on UiPath server, there are processes that are running on Blue Prism servers. I can also schedule them or sort them. Based on my security profile, I can give access to this directly to my business. My business can go in and say, I have a document, click a button that starts that corresponding process, or I want to schedule it to run on a weekly basis, monthly basis, or any such combination that they find. So this pushes the power of executing the bots to the business rather than for IT to define that every time. You have the visibility of the resources. So how many resources do I have? How many of them are running? How many of them are being utilized? And how many of them are dumb? Dumb in the sense like I have 20 bots, but I'm actually using only 4. So I'm paying for a lot. What happens to the 16 licenses that I'm paying that I'm not utilizing? So how can I start utilizing those things? Full visibility in one single place. And lastly, manage the queues. What processes are running? What is in the queue? What is its status? Including the exceptions, the time it takes, and the total cost of the failure putting the work in exception state rather than on a completed state. So you have the full end-to-end visibility in one single place. It's only possible because we are aggregating data from multiple RPA servers and business data combining together. Moving on to the third aspect of the Robotic Workforce Manager is a global case management solution. The global case management allows you to create a standardized way of handling any type of exception. Any type of exception. So the standard out-of-the-box functionality will handle any exception that happens in your robotics world and automatically create a task. So this is a default one. The task will be very simple to begin with. So I will show you an example over here. So here is a detail from the bot. The exception has been handled rather than going into an email or an inbox or a queue. And then it says, here's the exception information. From one of the bots, the resource is down. You need to handle it. It has come to the right person because we have a decisioning capability in the background that says, if these bots or these steps within the process are failing, these are the people who are the owners to complete the job. So we are marrying exception or location of the exception to who's the right person who can complete that piece of work. The second level to that is you can add layers. Layers, what I mean by that is, if an exception is coming from an invoice process, instead of just showing the exception, you can actually get the exception data. You can get the customer for which the invoice is, the invoice file itself, create an OCR on top of the invoice, convert the PDF into electronic format and allow the user to directly complete the work within Appian. And then putting the data back into the queue, either writing it directly to the target system or putting it back into the work queue. You can create any number of these layers as you want. You might have a special screen for handling invoice. You might want to have a special screen for handling customer complaints. If it's a platinum customer complaint, you want to automatically escalate it to a level 2 or a level 3 handling because you can identify who the customer is. Using integration, you can identify what is the customer data and then instantly present that information out. This is what we call as layering. The base layer allows you to automatically handle all kind of exception, and you can put any level of custom layers on top of that. You can assign a case to one of your coworkers. You can see the list of jobs. So for example, if this is something that's come in as a triage, I can assign it to one of the coworkers and say, please complete the work for me. So if the system doesn't know who's the right person, it can put it in the triage queue, and somebody can handle it and say, please complete the work. They will actually get a task, and then they just complete the task. They can do it either on a browser or on a mobile device, whether they are in front of the computer or they are moving somewhere around. You can have a global view of all the cases that are in flight. I can see all the cases that are in execution, how many people have touched about it, what are the audit log associated with that particular case, and I can also see the resource alerts. Resource alerts are like automatic health check, where it says, okay, I can't reach the server. The server is either down or I'm not able to reach it because of the network. So you have instant visibility of your landscape. So you don't want your servers to be down during peak hour. So this report becomes very, very important, so you can have an eye on how the resources are performing. To conclude and go back, the Robotic Workforce Manager, which is right now available for you to download, consists of 3 parts: the deployment manager, the control center, and the global case management solution. Today, it works with UiPath and Blue Prism. For Automation Anywhere, we have one of our partners, PresentSol. They have a booth outside. They have created a similar connector. So you might want to visit the booth, which is right outside. If you go out and turn right, speak to them. We also have Blue Prism in here, so you can also speak to Blue Prism over here. They are our partner for the past 2.5 years. To summarize, the future of work is not just one. It's not just RPA. It's not just BPM. It's a combination of business process management, integration, robotics, and AI. We are able to now use seamlessly robotics and AI together. You saw that on the keynote yesterday. We have out-of-the-box integration. We actually provide you with free AI capability powered by Google. The last use case I want to talk about is Aviva. They say Aviva is a 380-year-old young company. It's a funny way to say that, but yeah. One of their fundamental issues a few years back, it was a product-centric company. So I have 3 products with Aviva. I have a pension, I have a life insurance, and I have a car insurance. So a few years back, if I was to change my address, I would actually call 3 different numbers and say, my address has changed, this is my old number, this is my new number, and this is the policy information for each of those contents. They totally revolutionized the way to a customer-centric approach. Now, no matter who at Aviva picks up the call, they have a single view of Satya. They say, this is Satya, these are the products he has, these are the different operations, the customer journey you can do. They have defined 37 customer journeys, touching 22 custom systems. So in the past, when a change could touch upon 22 different systems, now they do it in one single system. They do that in Appian, and Appian takes the responsibility of updating all the systems in the background. It can be modern systems using their ESP or their legacy systems using Blue Prism. They use Blue Prism as their RPA technology. They have seen something like 64% improvement in operational efficiency. That's the level of changes that it brings. Oh, sorry, it says 40% cost saving and 65% efficiency. In addition to that, as I said, one of their focus was to change from a product-centric to a customer-centric experience. Now, no matter who calls in, they have a single journey. They can cross-sell, they can upsell, and they can identify issues in one single instance. The long-term vision that we are trying to propose over here is, you need to have the three elements. You need to have the data, you need to have the insight, and then you need to convert that into an actionable insight. This is the route to intelligent automation. And if you look into the kind of people we see in the market, it falls under 4 categories, level 0 to level 3. Level 0 is about using rules to route your call. There's some degree of RPA over there as well. Then level 1. Level 1 makes it a bit language and context aware. So you use what we call as perception-based APIs to identify what is the context, who is the right person to do the job, what is it about. So it's a cognitive service for unstructured data that comes into the system. Most of the people I've come across so far, most of the people, are in either level 0 or level 1. But we see more and more people moving towards now level 2. And this is where the real automation kicks in. Level 2 is about automatic process discovery. So tell me what is the next process I want to call. I don't want you to be like hard coding it every time. Tell me, let me discover it for you. Tell me what is the next bot that I can use in order to access my data. Anticipating things and connecting the anticipation to actions. Discoverable actions or driven actions. We see some people on that landscape as well. But the utopia is fully autonomous process optimization. That's where it's all moving towards. Autonomous process automation allows you to self-learn, self-heal, self-discover, and self-execute. We are not there yet. If anybody is doing here, I would love to hear from them as well. But that is today's utopia for intelligent automation. Now, I'll let you guys read what is in slide, but whenever you look into a technology, look into end-to-end automation. There's always a challenge. Every use case I was talking about is to highlight the fact that one technology alone does not solve the problem. You need to bring the technologies together that best suit your business requirements. How can I best help my team to make their job better? And the only way to do that is to have end-to-end visibility, not siloed application, not a narrow vision, not a tactical solution. End-to-end vision to complete the journey. Go for the low-hanging fruit. Show success in 2 to 3 weeks. Convert the success into revenue, and then revenue again allows you to expand that low-hanging fruit to a little bit higher. Go with a ladder, and then more and more and more. And I can't stress more, as much as I love working for Appian, Appian alone is not an end-to-end solution. Appian is a big puzzle. Appian is what I call as a digital glue that connects everything together. Appian is focused on customers' journey, but we want to leverage AI, RPA, and powerful integration to provide complete end-to-end intelligent automation. Now, there's a survey you might want to take to say how ready are you in your organization for intelligent automation. So I'll send you the links. Feel free to kind of knock yourself and see where you are in the chain. thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be around. But thank you so much, and have a lovely day.